Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is an action thriller from the United States, English language, released in the year 2025, directed by Tom Bocci, and this film is called Relentless. So Relentless is about a man who's working late at night. He's in IT, he's on his computer, and then he gets a knock on the door, and the knock on the door is from a man who wants to inflict as much pain upon him as possible. So he doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't know why he deserves such violence, but he soon finds himself on the streets and he's running away trying to escape. And so the pursuer is demented, but then as the movie goes along we get an insight into his mentality and the motive behind it. So things are about to get complicated, and what happens at that point on is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Relentless. Although this movie was an incredibly inconsistent ride, I can applaud the director for trying something different. Now, as far as low-budget independent cinema is concerned, this actually looks very good. This has a very brisk cinematography, it's very downbeat and cruel, which really matches the vibe that the movie's going for, and it has a lot of mystery to it. So straight from the start, we get an insight into this man who has violence inflicted upon him, and it's very brutal violence, and I thought the violence played a very pivotal role in the actual movie. It wasn't violence for violence sake, and a lot of these independent cinema and these types of movies with action, you get a lot of violence for the sake of it. It's just gratuitous and it's nothing more than just visual based. Whereas this movie, you get a sense that it's going to be a very brutal film, but then after a while you sense, alright, the brutality, there's a lot more to it. And it does play a character of its own, and it's a movie about the destruction of violence and violence not necessarily making a situation better. And so I thought that was really interesting. It actually had a very strong psychological approach to it. And the fact that you get no insight as to what's going on, it creates that mystery, and so it keeps you guessing, it keeps you following the director. It's like dangling the carrot. You need something to entice the viewer, and I definitely feel as though this director did a very good job at that. So the choreography and the action set pieces, straight away, it's very hard-hitting, very violent, very brutal, very cruel. But then as it goes along, it starts to slow down a bit, and we get more of an insight into the story. Then all of a sudden the violence that's taking place on the screen has so much more impact. And so I thought that was really good. I thought the acting was quite decent from the man who was pursuing this individual. I thought he was a psychotic individual at the start, but then his character starts to unravel, and there's a strong sense of sympathy, and the whole film has a tragic feel to it, which is something again that I really liked. It would have been very easy to cut corners and do cheap tricks, whereas this director is actually trying to produce something different. Although it doesn't always work, at least he was trying something. And so in a world where creativity is non-existent, directors like this come along and they're daring to be different, and that's very being a first time watch of this director, that's a very ballsy thing to do, because it can backfire. You can play it safe and do it by the numbers and no one's going to care. But if you actually try something different, if you can pull it off, it's absolutely outstanding. But at least although this movie wasn't outstanding, at least it gave me an insight into this director and how talented he actually is, because there's a lot of particular moments in this movie that were really, really good. But unfortunately, the reason why it's not as good as it really should have been is because it's very inconsistent, not only in the tone of the film, but also in the characters. And so the movie has a very frenetic pace in the first quarter, and then it really stops at the halfway point and goes into a dialogue-driven base. So it's a psychological drama. And the movie Relentless, it gives you the impression that it's going to be a relentless ride, but it's not relentless. And I can see a lot of people being very frustrated by that. And I could notice the fact that it was very disjointed in its pacing, because at the end, it starts to kick into gear as far as action is concerned. But there's that long area in the middle that just has dialogue, and I just felt as though it didn't fit, it didn't really belong, and I could see I was getting a little bit frustrated and a little bit irritated because of the fact I just felt as though they were two different movies, and so the consistency really wasn't there. The consistency in the script wasn't there. There were some moments that I didn't like. I liked the character that was appeared to be the psycho, but the other character, he didn't really bounce off him very well, because he was very irritating. He was looking for excuses for what he's done, and the excuses were a cop-out. A lot of people like to blame society for what their problems are, and basically that's okay to inflict horrible things upon someone else, and I don't like that, and this character was doing that a lot. I thought the acting from that character was very inconsistent, and so this main character, the psycho, he needed someone to play off, and it just doesn't have that. And being a film that has very limited characters, the emphasis is on that chemistry, and the chemistry just wasn't there. So I was really irritated with one character, but I wanted to see the other character and how that would evolve. So there's a lot of inconsistency there, and I just thought as though it just made a very disjointed film. So if you are after something that is going to be relentless and action-paced and non-stop, this is not a movie for you. But at least the dialogue base was trying something, and it was quite thought-provoking, but unfortunately it just didn't belong in this type of movie. Therefore therefore I didn't fully gravitate to it, because the characters are actually quite skin deep, and so there's the emotional depth of a puddle, and so you don't really gravitate to them, so the dialogue base doesn't really work. It's more like a stopgap, like a pit stop, for it to really kick into gear at the end. So that was the issue I had with it. It's a very minimalistic film that almost feels like a stage play. It works in a lot of areas and it doesn't work in others, so it does have that very disjointed appeal to it. But for a low budget movie, at least he's trying something different, so it's definitely interesting, but it just didn't quite work at the end and didn't gel together to be a very rewarding experience. So overall, for Relentless, going to give this 2 stars. Still recommended if you are a fan of low budget cinema. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.